Hello, my friends. Ryan Nelson here. We're just going through Matthew, and today we're on chapter 5, verses 29 through 30. And if I was to name this video today, I would name it "Willing to Deal Radically with Your Sin." Maybe the question, are you willing to deal radically with your sin? And this is what Jesus says in Matthew 5, verse 29 through 30. He says, "If your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you, for it's better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell." That sounds really extreme. Okay. And some people, some countries actually look at this kind of saying and they take it to a literal standpoint where, like, if you get caught stealing, they cut off your hand. That is not what Jesus is talking about. Okay. That is not what he's talking about right now. Just so you know, tearing out your eye is not going to cleanse you from sin. So much of this is a heart issue to begin with. But what Jesus is doing is he's using figurative words, strong language, to illustrate a shocking and gruesome scene of ripping out your eye. Imagine visualizing ripping out your eye and throwing it into fire. What is he saying? He's not saying to tear out your eye. He's saying it's very important to sever out the sin that is in your life. It's very important. And this is what Jesus is saying, because as a non-Christian, an unbeliever, sin's going to be prevalent in your life. If you are a follower, this is what you have to know, is that sin is going to creep back up into your life. It will creep back into your life. And how do you handle that as a believer? The reality is when you come to know Christ and you understand his glory, his love for you, your heart is going to want to do what's right. All of a sudden, sin is going to start to look bad. Pastor Wade said it in his sermon the other day. He said it's like wearing clothes. It's like having going to work all day and you have this dirty clothes on. When you get home, you're uncomfortable. You don't want to just go sit on your nice white couch and eat dinner in dirt and filth. It feels uncomfortable. That's what it's like when you become to know Christ. All of a sudden, sin starts to feel uncomfortable. But what happens is it creeps back into your life. And Jesus is like, cut it out and throw it in the fire. And here's another example. In Corinthians chapter 9, Paul says this. He says, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. That's pretty wordy, so I'm going to translate it a little bit easier. In the New American Standard, which is what I normally use, it says, "But I discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself not be disqualified." He's saying having self-control. He wants to have self-control so he doesn't disqualify himself in his teachings to others. But how does that apply to you? He says, as I preach. But let's break that down even more. I guess what I would say is an easier translation would be control the world influences control the world influences, because if you don't, they will eventually control you. Now, we drive down the street every day and we see billboard ads that are inappropriate. It's all over ads on the internet. It's in TV. Almost all TV is now just polluted. And people say it's progressing, but it's actually digressing. I would much rather watch a film from the 70s all the way back to the 50s. There was more substance and content. Today it's just about shock value. And that shock value is temporary. It's not lasting. It doesn't have a lasting effect in your life like older movies did. And so it's like, but how do you control it? It's out of control. The whole world's out of control. You have communism popping up in places. You have third world countries at war, genociding their people. Like you're like, well, I can't change the world. I can't go out and change the world on my own. But here is a phrase that I've reminded myself, and a lot of people have heard me say this many times. And I don't know if I got it from somewhere. I don't know if it was a Mark Twain quote or I just read it or if it just came to me one day. But you cannot change the world, but you can change your world, the world that you live in. You can change your surroundings. Change your surroundings so that you don't fall in the trap of sin. Because sin is temporary. It's a temporary feel good, but long term, it's destructive. We see this. I mean, if you, and I'll just use simple things like drugs. It's an easy illustration. You can take a drug, you can get high, and it will make you feel good temporary. But then you need it to have that feeling. But to have that feeling how it was the first time, you got to add more. And then you have to add more. And then you have to add more. And then after a while, the drugs destroy every other part of your life. And that's with all sin. That's with all sin. So in your personal world, my challenge to you is look around and see what you can change. Change your friends if you have to. If your friends put you in trouble or they push sin on you, change your friends. I had a youth one time in one of my youth classes, and he came and he said, the problem is my friends always send me messages through text message that are just inappropriate. And it's like, I tried to stay away from it, but then boom, one of my friends sends it to me from school, and I'm like, cut the friend out of your life. See, that's what Jesus says, cut your eye out. He doesn't mean mutilate your body. He's saying, look at how you can sever things out of your life to keep you from sinning. Like, cut your friend out of your life. If he's going to keep bringing that and you ask him to stop and he continues and continues, cut him out of your life. What about habits that you formed? Can you cut habit out of your life? And some of those can be extremely hard to cut out of your life. I know that from personal experience, but you got to cut habits out. TV that you watch. I know there's some TV out there that is very intriguing. You watch it, it kind of sucks you in. They do this a lot in Hollywood. They'll suck you in with a really good narrative, really good kind of clean family fun, and then they'll just drop second season, some new thing to try and make it shocking. And what it is typically inappropriate, sinful, and then you start following a path of a sinful hero. And that's what they want you to believe, is that it's heroic to have sin in your life and to battle with it. That's not heroic. What's heroic is cutting it out before it comes to that point. That's what heroic is. In the internet, I mean, your social media, is it tempting for you to do things that you shouldn't do? Do you have parental locks in your house as a youth? And parents, do you not just, this is the thing that I want to, I'm speaking to Christian parents too, not just youth. Listen, you can call your internet provider and you can put a parental lock on your whole internet for specific websites. You can go on there and say, I want to remove all immoral, inappropriate websites. Basically, you can remove pornography, not just for your kids, but for you. Just because you're old enough to watch a rated R film doesn't mean you need to live a rated R film. And that's something you need to remember, so you can remove that from your life. What do you read? What do you read? There are some books out there that are just very dark. And people think it's intriguing. Again, it's intriguing. You get involved, but next thing you know, it wraps you up in it, and you are now you're going to conform to what you're reading. What about the music you listen to? Now, see, I've listed a lot of things. I'm not saying you have to go out and change all of these tomorrow. I'm saying, out of these things, which ones cause you temptation? See, music doesn't really affect me. Like, I can listen to secular music, and it doesn't really affect me very much because I really get caught up more with the music than I do the words. But there are some people who listen to it who internalize the lyric and it causes them to sin. Same thing with drinking alcohol. If you drink wine with your spaghetti because you're in an Italian restaurant and it goes good with it, that's fine. That's not going to kill you. It's not going to walk you down a path to where you're going to do bad things. But I'm going to tell you what, if you start drinking alcohol to fill a void and a hole in your life, and it starts to make you sin, or you drink so much that you make poor choices, maybe that's something you should cut out of your life. So that's what Jesus is talking about. He's not saying rip your eye out or cut your arm off. He's saying, what links are you willing to sever sin out of your life? Because it is, and today it's so hard. And I actually feel for families. I feel for kids. I feel so much for the world we live in, because it is just dropping bombs of temptation nonstop, more than any other time in history. So it is at the hardest point. But I know we can do it because Jesus says the gates of hell will not prevail. It will not. So if you're a part of his church, he will give you ways to sever it out of your life. So I hope you guys have a good day. I hope you have a good week, and God bless. Hop on tomorrow if you want to learn more.